Today's video is part 2 in a 2-part series in which I dive in deep explaining my philosophy on why I believe talking about style in the sole context of dressing in a way that's attractive to women is totally irrelevant and missing the mark. If you have not watched part 1, none of what you are about to see is going to make any sense. You need some context to understand all the stuff that I'm diving into with this. And so go watch part 1 here. I will be here when you get back. If you have already seen part 1, let's jump into it. So if we know that status is the primary attraction standpoint for men, what does that have to do with clothing, and why don't I talk about raising your status through your clothing to make yourself more attractive? The first question is easy to answer, and that answer is that status is always being signaled by your clothing. Think of a few different things. Think of, okay, the military. The military very definitively signals status through their clothing. It's the patches or the pins or other things that are used to signal rank, which is status within that hierarchy. Or look at what a suit is supposed to say. A well-made suit is supposed to signal status because it shows that you don't have to work with your hands, that you've got access to financial resources, that you have good taste, that you've got other things that are required in order for you to not only wear a suit but wear it well. And that's why you can tell the difference between somebody who looks great in a suit and somebody who's just wearing a sloppy thing that they picked up from Men's Warehouse. One signals status, the other just signals begrudged conformity. Or think about something like your cut if you're part of a motorcycle club. Tell me that status isn't signaled there. Not only just hierarchy, but even the fact that you belong to the club. You can't wear one of those cuts if you don't belong to the club. There's status and hierarchy right there. Or even from a softer perspective. When somebody's on top of a trend, and the reason that trends are always changing is because it's subtle and subconscious ways for those who are ahead of the curve to be able to signal that and to be able to mark their high status, and for those who are lower to finally signal, oh, I finally caught up, which then triggers those who are higher status to change and start all over again. So you want to accurately demonstrate your own position within your different hierarchies, within your different tribes, and you even want to dress in a way that's a little bit more aspirational. There's nothing wrong with signaling a little bit higher status than what you actually are, but you don't want to go so far that your clothing ends up becoming a lie. And this is why, take this as an example, not that I'm picking on these guys, but this is why young men in suits often look so dopey. What it is subconsciously communicating is a complete lack of social fluency. One, because they're using a suit, which is an overall Western world communication of high status, to communicate something that they haven't earned. They don't have the wisdom or the finances or the experience or the clout or the credibility that is necessary for that suit to actually status. So in general, they're telling a lie. And then the second problem is that within the majority of small tribes and subcultures that most young people find themselves in, wearing suits is not only not a part of the hierarchy, it's totally ex-tribe. If suits were more commonly seen on high school and college campuses, then it would make sense that there would be a lot of men wearing them, and there would be subtle or even overt distinctions between them as a way to demarcate between different tribes or hierarchy within individual tribes. But because they're not, because they're totally ex-tribe from the majority of subcultures that young men find themselves in, those who wear them end up looking silly or try-hard or like posers. They're using an unearned ex-tribe symbol of attractiveness, and it ends up making them stand out negatively instead of positively. Honestly, it's kind of like thinking that the best way to pound in a nail is by using a fishing rod. I mean, yes, they're both tools, but they are intended for very, very different purposes. Which brings us all the way around to the final point, and that is, who constitutes high status? The simple answer to that is, it's other men. That's both politically incorrect and socially inconvenient, but the reality is, and the truth is, that in the vast majority of tribes, in the vast majority of cultures, men have determined the value of other men in the group. Which is not to say that women don't have a part at all. Women will confirm and reaffirm that status as it's granted by other men, but women don't bestow the original status on men. Ancient tribes, they used to grant status based on those who could contribute to the group, and that was through things like fighting ability, or how good of leaders they were, or how well they cooperated, or whether or not they were masters at things like armory or tailoring or blacksmithing. And in fact, Donovan's 4 tactical virtues, strength, courage, mastery, and honor, those are all things that men use to signal their worth to the tribe and basically to demonstrate our status within the tribe. All 4 of those are yardsticks by which men measure ourselves and we measure each other. Those who measure up and are respected by other men within the group attain high status, and then they become attractive to the more beautiful women, which in turn makes them higher status, and it perpetuates this cycle. Those who don't measure up will be shunned by other men, making them appear low status to attractive women, which in turn affirms that low status and then perpetuates that cycle. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, well, Dad, but Tanner, there are exceptions to this. And yes, there are, kind of. Take, for example, the lone wolf who doesn't want or need the approval of other men. From a tribal standpoint, his status is either low or irrelevant. He doesn't belong in the tribe, he doesn't want to belong in the tribe, it doesn't matter. But from an overall standpoint, go back to the very first thing that we talked about, those traits that made men attractive. He has those in spades. Status may not be one of them, but power, dominance, charisma, physical beauty, all of those things can add up and still make him attractive even if he doesn't have a tribe that he particularly belongs to. In fact, a lot of times the combination of those and being ex-tribe in a way signal a separate kind of status, because what it's communicating is that he doesn't need the group to thrive. He's capable of not only surviving but thriving on his own because he is so competent and powerful and dominant. Whereas the losers who don't have those attractive traits and also don't belong into a tribe because they have shunned it or it has shunned them, they're losers and we don't want to be around them. Women aren't attracted to them and they find themselves perpetually frustrated because they can't get the same attraction going for them that these other guys can. They think they have a ton in common, but the reality is that there is way more that's different about them. Okay, so taking all of this into account from a style standpoint, it becomes very easy to see that dressing solely to attract women is a limiting and in a lot of ways a false goal. In fact, by making the pursuit of finding a girlfriend or a wife or even just a date your sole purpose, this main thing that you're overly focused on, what you're subconsciously communicating is low status. You're granting tribal primacy to beauty instead of to power, which is the prerogative of women within the tribe. Think about it this way. For men, the ability to attract the most beautiful women comes with power. For women, the best way to attain influence and power is through their beauty. Now, of course, our modern world is changing this paradigm, not only through social movements like feminism and egalitarianism, but even through things like technology or the fact that we outsource the protection of the tribe to governments and police forces. That primal need to function like tribes have is not totally gone, but it certainly is being mitigated. And that's why there's so much dissonance in the world the way that it is today. But don't think that just because society is moving away from that, regardless of whether you like that we're moving away from that, don't think that just because we are moving away from it, that we've totally rewired our brains and our biology to the point where power for men and beauty for women don't matter, because they do. So if I tell you to dress in a way that prioritizes attracting women, whether that's because you want to be more attractive and you get validation that way, or you just want to feel more attractive and you get validation based on how you feel, we're missing the mark. However, if I tell you to dress in a way that helps you both signal and attain more power and a higher status, either because you want that relative to other men or just because you want to feel more powerful, then not only do you get that, but you will also signal attractiveness and become more attractive to more beautiful women. Like I said, there's a lot to unpack in there. There's a lot of stuff that I know is going to piss a lot of you guys off because it is very much off the reservation of what is acceptable speech today, but don't get emotional about it. Think about whether or not what I'm saying is true. In fact, my brother, before he got married, he used to make a joke about how he would make sure that he got a Maserati before he got married, because if he got a Maserati, it wouldn't be that difficult for him to get married. But if he got married first, then it would be a lot more difficult for him to get a Maserati. Now, obviously that's tongue-in-cheek, but a lot of times the best tongue-in-cheek jokes are based off of an understanding of reality. So I want to hear what you have to say. Do you dress primarily to attract women? Do you think that if you're dressing solely or even primarily for the purpose of attracting women, that you're missing better opportunities? Does watching this change your perspective on that? Do you think I'm totally off my rocker when it comes to this kind of stuff, or do you agree with me? Leave me a comment below, let me know what you think, and I will catch you guys on the next one.